the second term that I ran, they came up and said, hey, John, why don't you jump on board and we'll help you, you'll help us. So I told him, I said, you know what? We can do that, but I'm gonna look at you right in the eye and I'm gonna tell you, I won't always vote with you. I am not gonna form any type of clique. And that's what happened again. So, I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you, that we need to get somebody from outside that doesn't have any ties. We just hire him, he does his business, no matter what, you know, somebody disagrees with him or not, he's paid to do a certain job and you know, to do it, you know, carry on his job.
Amen.
Can I say just one more thing? If there is anybody in this room that did not understand that I was not talking to these or criticizing these two councils,
Amen.
I'm talking to the rest of the people that need to be here that weren't here.
I'm going to take and maybe redefine your definition of outside. Okay. I believe that we need an independent, qualified, competent leader in the city of Floresville. Having worked for the military for a tremendous number of years, I had the privilege of mentoring many a young second lieutenant. And I defined a good leader for them and said, a good leader surrounds him or herself with a bunch of smart people, so that when a problem or question arises, he or she can solicit the opinions and guidance of each of these smart people. But ultimately, that commander has to make the decision. And mind you, this is the military. My wife constantly reminds me of this particular part of the story. That once that decision is made, if any of those team members are going to cause resistance because they disagree with the opinion, they need to be fired. And the thought process behind that is that the leader has to see the whole picture. And each of the team members may only see a part of the picture. And sometimes may or may not agree with that decision. And that's the heavy responsibility that lasts with the city manager. In talking to one of the recruitment firms today, they asked me, what did I want in a city manager? What characteristics or experience did we want? Did we want 15 years of municipal experience, or did we want them to have 10 years in public works, or experience managing a police department, or experience in finance? So I'm going to go just finish the comment because I said we need a manager, we need a leader that can surround him or herself by the smart people that we already have and take them down the road and take the city down.
I have a few questions. One is infrastructure. Jim, you talked about at the very beginning, and I'd read recently in the San Antonio paper about so many roads that are not going to be repaved, but they will become gravel roads because there is no funding to keep those roads up, and obviously we're going to face something like that. I don't know if the city has something looking towards the future, because our roads will definitely be affected by all the oil stuff. So I don't know what plan we have to do repairs or anything. Secondly, is an easy one for Councilman Guerrero. Could you explain very easily what Mayor Pro Tem is for the young audience? And then another thing about the getting a, we were just talking about a new city director, and I agree a lot with the idea, and I don't know the depths of what's going on in the city. I've been in the county for about 10 years now. I've but I would be very careful, and I'm not saying go one way or the other, but I'd be very careful about making this person have to be from without, because it's very difficult to replace the heart of a place. There's somebody that is qualified, that is independent, that has a passion for the city of Floresville because they've been around. Well, that I wouldn't want to dismiss that just because they weren't, because they are in the city. And so I want you to consider that. The last one is, I want to encourage you from experience I just had. July 4th, I shot off some fireworks. I sit in a strategic place just outside the city on a hill, and I can see for a long, long ways. And it's exciting for my children and I to see the fireworks every July, well, whenever the burn ban is not on. And for January 1st, for the New Year's. And you know what, we shot off our fireworks, and I got all settled in to watch the city fireworks, and they didn't come. And I just want you to know that that feeling of knowing that my council people were doing the right thing in saving, not going into debt, looking at the whole financial issues of the city. And I don't know, maybe you guys didn't make the determining decision for that, but whoever did, I had a better feeling about not having the fireworks, knowing that somebody was making the right decision, than the feeling that I would have gotten if the fireworks would have went off. And I know there was something in the paper just recently that almost caused me to think somebody was calling the council unpatriotic for not shooting out the fireworks. And I think it's less than patriotic to use money you don't have to do something just to have this feeling of patriotism. So I want to thank you guys for that.
Well, Mayor Pro Tem takes the place of the mayor when the mayor is not available, either at a city council meeting or making presentation or kissing babies, But the Mayor Pro Tem is able to vote on any item at a council meeting. As the mayor only breaks a tie, or the Mayor Pro Tem can vote on any item. Now, on the streets, or do you live in the city or county?
I live in the county.
Okay, well, so that would be the county as far as on the roads, redoing the roads.
So what is the program for restructuring of roads within the city? Obviously, 181 is going to take a meeting in years.
Well,
Now, whatever it is.
we have several things, and I'm going to attack your question, and let me go backwards a little bit to your questions. The fireworks display, I would love to take responsibility for it not occurring, but it wasn't a city council decision. It was a decision of the Floresville Economic Development Corporation, who had historically funded that. I know for a fact that they had spent over $10,000 each year for fireworks, and it was the Floresville Economic Development Board that was unable to, or chose not to go forward with that program. As I understand the report that the newspaper put out, the Chamber of Commerce was contacted to see if they would be doing it, and they were not doing a fireworks display, and the city manager's office was contacted if the city was going to be doing the fireworks display, and the city manager's office clearly had to respond that the city wasn't going to do it because they had no direction to provide a fireworks display. But I also agree with you in that it is morally responsible not to spend money that we don't have, particularly because it is the taxpayers' dollars.
Yes.
It is not our dollars. Too many times government officials at any level talk about spending the money like it is their right to spend the money, simply because you've given it up as taxpayers, and that is not true. Hopefully I redefined that definition of outsider to be independent, qualified, competent. Certainly, we're not going to exclude anybody simply because of their current residence to that job. The city charter does require that the city manager, after being hired, reside within the city limits of the city of Floresville. The city charter does not specify those types of requirements for interim employees. Infrastructure. How can this city grow if we don't have plans for the infrastructure? Some time ago, they talked about a need to expand the sewer plant because it was brought up in the 10-year master plan. I've learned some interesting things in the last 8 months. We have one map of all the water lines and sewer lines in the city of Floresville. It is dated in the late 1970s. All the additions and improvements were put in with pen and ink or pencil. And if anybody needs to know anything about where a water line is or a sewer line is, they find Rudy, who is the current Director of Public Works. I asked the question, what happens when Rudy dies? How do we find the water lines? Or when Rudy retired? How do we know that if we put in a water meter here, that it's not going to reduce the level of service down the line to an unsafe level? We had a group trying to put in a business that was going to require a certain amount of wastewater. And one of the components of that was that the engineers say that we had the capacity to do that. And I went to a meeting with the engineer, and he said, it's my best guesstimate. I said, that's not good enough. We can't expand a city that way. We collect a 0.25% sales tax in the city of Floresville that is entitled a street maintenance tax. So what are the plans to pave the roads? What are the priorities? When are they going to happen? We didn't have this. So I asked the question, if we're going to need to expand the sewer plant, does it make sense to expand the sewer plant here? Or is it cheaper to build a smaller sewer plant above the hill so that we don't have to pump the sewage over the hill, back down the hill to the sewer plant, where we're growing? Oh, well, we don't know. Which is more cost effective? Because if we build a second plant, it's going to reduce the load on this plant. Do we have the capacity to get it there? We don't know the answer to that. So I talked about this land use plan and the water model and the sewer models as being critical components to growing. We must know where our water lines are and what their capacities are, so that at the same time we need to know where we're growing, so that as we expand our water system, we do it in the direction that we are growing. Not in the direction that we think is a good idea, or not in the direction that is the easiest. And that we do the same thing with our sewer plant and our sewer lines. We ask the questions, do we have the capacity? Not best guesstimates. The land use plan includes a component called land use assumptions. Not best guesstimates on where we're growing, but based upon building permits, based upon usage that's going to say this is the direction that we're going. Which will allow us to establish another thing in here. We get the water model, we learn where our water lines are, what their capacities are. We get the sewer model. This one's going to go over, I can promise you. Where our sewer lines are and what their capacity is, so that we can plan to grow. And do things called impact fees, so that if you're going to put in a new water service or a new water or sewer service into our system, that the fees are appropriate to allow us to expand. And that they're based on, okay, this is the fee for a new residential tie-in, this is the fee for a business tie-in based upon its volume of water and volume of sewer. But we got to know where we are first before we can decide how we're going to move forward. And those things are in place and should be completed by the end of this next fiscal year, so that we can move forward based on facts, not guesstimates. Now to roads. US 181 and the business loop as it comes through downtown and Highway 90 are all maintained by TxDOT. 97, excuse me, that's the second time I've done it. 97 east and west are maintained by TxDOT. We have a very limited, we have no responsibility or financial responsibility to maintaining the roads. Recently, the city took over responsibility of maintaining the medians, cutting the grass in the medians, which TxDOT had been doing twice a year. It's my understanding that we're doing it 4 to 6 times a year, which certainly improves the look of our city as you're driving through. The city staff has worked on a street maintenance plan to identify those roads that have the priority to be repaired first and second, and have been told, and as part of this financial insolvency plan and the 10-year master plan, have been directed to tell us on a time basis based upon this 0.25% sales tax, based upon budgeted dollars, when that's going to take place, based upon those priorities. Do we have the resources to repair all the streets in the city of Floresville today? No. Do we have the resources to do 10% of the streets today? No. But we do have the 0.25% sales tax to fund that, to fund part of those repairs. And the direction they've gotten as part of the 10-year master plan is, as we repair streets, okay, through the street maintenance tax, not only do we repair the street, we install the appropriate drainage, we install curbs and sidewalks. Okay, so at some point in the future, it's probably 20, 25, 30 years, every street in the city of Floresville will have the appropriate drainage, will have curbs, and will have sidewalks, so long as the voters continue to support the 0.25% sales tax, which is renewed every 4 years. That's what's being used to fund that. And as we are seeing significant increases in sales tax, as of this point compared to just last year, we're 20% above in sales tax revenues in the city of Floresville. That also is putting more dollars to the street maintenance. I'm sorry about that. Hopefully that answered your question.
Could you repeat that, please?
I'm coming up for a repeat, and seeing Monica here is why I want to ask a question, and it's going to be actually for Mr. Guerrero, for Councilman Guerrero. Some of us were present at the council meeting, and some of were not last year, when our previous mayor very rudely and disrespectfully shared with Monica that she was no longer going to be serving on the committee. She handled it with such grace and decorum. I don't know of many people that could have done that. And she spoke so eloquently about it. I want to know if there's any kind of amendment or change that can be made where the mayor cannot just move forward without even giving any reason because somebody didn't agree with that mayor, and remove them from doing an excellent job of serving the city.
I don't believe there's anything in the charter that says that we can not keep a representative or a committee member removed. In Monica's case, a couple of us had already heard a week or 2 weeks prior to Monica being removed that she was going to be removed. You know, you can't keep the secret here at Floresville. So we knew that. So, and I think a lot had to do with a previous meeting that Monica had spoken up when the mayor had said, you know, I'm old, I don't remember things as well as I used to, but it was something that the mayor had said that Monica stood up and said, you're wrong. Okay? And again, remember what the.
It truly doesn't matter. It was
But
the
anyway,
manner.
right, and so, because, and again, this is my personal, and I guess there's others that believe the same way, that because Monica stood up, that her days were numbered. So that the next meeting, it was done, and it was a done deal. I spoke against it. As I mentioned, you could have a meeting of the board members at that time, and Monica would be the only one with a pen and pencil asking the hard questions. And because she asked questions, and because she wanted answers, not just give me figures, but show me what these figures are, what they're for. But I don't believe that there's anything that, in the charter, that says that we can keep something from happening. Of course, if we change it, we'd have to change the charter. And
I respectfully submit that needs to change because it's just not right.
It'd have to change a couple of things, because the charter and bylaws of an economic development corporation say that those board members, and this is not true of the Parks Foundation, this is not true of the 4A Corporation, but very specifically to the 4B Corporation, is they serve at the pleasure of the city council. Now, does that mean that they can be removed immediately or whatever? It was not the former mayor. Former mayor and the mayor does not have the authority to appoint or remove anybody. It is a majority vote of the council that could appoint or remove anybody. I can tell you that today, since being appointed to a board, be it the 4A, the 4B, or Parks Foundation, not a single member has been replaced because their charter is such that they are termed appointments, specifically within the 4B Corporation. Some of those appointments are 2-year appointments. Some of those appointments are 4-year appointments. It's not a rotating membership. We put them in there based upon their qualifications and their love of our city and wanting to move us forward and let them function collectively. And this, the 4B board has done. And unfortunately, that was a inappropriate action of politics. Can we change that with the city charter? We've done some, there was some changes to the charter, but that cannot change the charter and the bylaws of the 4B Corporation. And right now, that's the way that sits, is they serve at the pleasure of the city council. And I believe that verbiage comes from the state office, the state as it relates to economic development corporation.
Okay, I mean, I'm just sharing with you, the way it came across, it strictly came across as the mayor, for one thing,
Well,
okay?
I think he broke the tie. Right, Monica, on that?
He broke a lot of things. He broke the city. My next, and it's just a comment, and it's to follow what Steve Smith said, and there are some new faces here that we normally don't see at the city council, and the fact that we want you honest, and we want you to do the right thing for all of the citizens, the way you get that done is you need to go to the meetings. Just because we like Jim Miller, just because we like John Guerrero, don't trust them to always do the right thing. Seriously, you need to go to the meetings and get involved.
Next question?
Nobody has one, I have no. What permits have to be pulled for the city of Floresville? I'm speaking, as far as I know, there may be only a couple, but those doing construction, those doing plumbing, those doing air conditioning, those doing electrical. Do we have an inspector? I guess if we had an inspector, maybe we should be pulling permits, but I don't know if anybody's required to do any of that through the city of Floresville.
Now, any skilled work, I can back up when we talk about code compliance. The city of Floresville accepted the same codes that exist within the city of San Antonio for building construction. Anything that is governed by code, and you mentioned those that are plumbing, HVAC, electrical, new construction, modification of an existing facility, all require permits through the city of Floresville. It's not very well, that is the requirement that is there today. It's not very well published on the city's website.
Is that new?
No.
No.
Because I've come to city council before for air conditioning stuff, and they said, you don't have to pull a permit.
That's,
But that's going back a ways, so.
okay, yeah,
that's
it's my understanding.
Asking.
Okay, yeah, all licensed work is permitted. Electricians, builders, plumbers, HVAC, anything to that effect. That's my understanding. Now, your second question about the inspections, that is a contract service that the city uses. Having just had a hot water heater installed in my business, it was inspected. Having just installed a sign or a number of signs that had electrical connections, we permitted those through the city. Okay? And it is a contract inspector that comes and looks at them. Is that something that probably needs to be changed in the future? I think so. I think if we've looked through the financial pieces of this, we're spending more than the cost of 1 or 2 full-time employees that could be in-house inspectors that would ensure maybe a little more timeliness to them. But I will check on the HVAC requirement and get back with you on that. It's my understanding that it is that.
I know prior to this, the city just had an employee that would go out and inspect, and that's why I would get some calls from electricians saying, "Hi, is this guy inspecting my work? He doesn't know anything about electricity." So that's, you know, electrical work, so that's something that we'll, you know, I also will check into.
So I know a lot of people like it and they don't like it. I mean, it is a safety net. It is also a way in which you finance things. And I just don't know. I mean, I'd be curious to know how many permits have been pulled in the city in the last year for these trades. I doubt very few.
Well, I think the number of permits is significant that have been pulled. If we look at the revenue for permits, okay, this year is twice the revenue that the city collected for fees and permits in the previous fiscal year. So we are collecting the fees and permits, and it is the code compliance office that's responsible for that through the office of the city manager. I know I was contacted on a couple of occasions by electricians regarding work that was being done that they were of the opinion was being done without a permit. And the code compliance office was contacted, and in fact, they did have permits in place. Okay, so if you ever see any work that you think is being done without a permit, then certainly contact the city manager's office. And if you don't get a response, then contact me.
I just have a quick question. I hate to double dip here, but since the time allows, not long ago the city banned Agenda 21. I'd like to know from each of you, in 2 minutes apiece, exactly what that means to you, and what are you looking for?
Well, from what I read, I spent an afternoon at the, couple afternoons in the library looking it up. And as I mentioned at the city council meeting, what I read, I didn't like. Coming from the United Nations, as I mentioned, I don't want the United Nations telling me what I can or can't do.
Amen.
What I can drive, what I can own, how much property I can have. What I read, you know, I wasn't for it. So that's what I took out of Agenda 21, forcing us to give up things. Freedom. And I just was not going to let, you know, that's why I was against it.
Anything that takes the rights away from the citizens of this community, this county, or this state, or this country, I am opposed to, period. Agenda 21 was clearly that. I'm opposed to large governments setting standards for how you live your life, be it the city of Floresville, the county of Wilson, the state of Texas, the United States of America, or even as some are hoping for a national government through the United Nations that are going to impose laws or regulations that are going to impact those rights. It was a no-brainer decision.
Any more questions there?
I don't have a question, but I would like to make another statement.
Yes, ma'am.
Just to these two councilmen and also to the audience, I have been working with the,
I've been working with the tourism division and things going on in the Historical Society in this city and county for about, I guess, 20 years or more. And right now, we have just finished a study, a feasibility study with the National Park Service through the San Antonio River Authority, with the opportunity that we have in this area through the El Camino Real de Tejas. And over the years, many times we have brought to the city council and we have brought to the city government the opportunities that we have had in implementing our source of income and our cultural heritage through tourism, cultural tourism. Several years ago, we were very instrumental through the Historical Society to get Las Cabras out here on the outside of town to become the extension of the National Missions Park in San Antonio. This was something that we worked very hard for. And now that we have an opportunity maybe to have more people on the council interested in the history of the community and this area, that we may be able to get more support, if nothing more than verbal support, or acquiescence to the fact that it is important that we have the history in this area that we do. And one of the reasons that I'm bringing this up now is because that the National Park Service will finish with this feasibility study, and it will be published in October of this year. It's a very extensive study of the San Antonio River area. Floresville is in Wilson County is a major portion of this section, and there are many grants that's going to be available to develop signage to the National Park Service for a national trail. The El Camino Real de Tejas is a national trail, and it will be an opportunity for us to have a lot to say about the signage and about what goes on in Wilson County and Floresville historically. And it's something that would benefit us greatly. And I know that over the years we've tried to work with the city and we tried to work with the county together to help bring this about. And I also know that Monica has worked with us a lot with us in this project. And this is a great opportunity that we're going to have to be able to meet with the National Park Service. They'll be contacting the elected officials in September of this year to have a meeting and a community meeting also to talk about the opportunities that we will have through economic development and heritage tourism. So Floresville is a major portion of where that can happen in conjunction with what little grant money that's available to us to have signage. We have this booklet that this book they're going to prepare is full of pictures and information and heritage that we have on historical markers and what we've done in the Floresville area and Wilson County. So I would like to say to you and to the group that our heritage is very important, and this is something that we should all try to work together with, and that's why these town hall meetings are important, and we hope to have some of these when the National Park Service comes so that we might encourage and develop some of the knowledge that we've learned about how important we are in Texas history.
I had a couple of comments to I'm a very fond believer in history because I believe that if we are unable to learn from history, we are destined to repeat it. I think working together is a critical piece of that, and I made comment to the Economic Development Corporation, the 4A Corporation, the Parks Foundation, all working together with the City Council, and I think that is going to improve those kinds of relationships working towards those projects. I think the same is also true in the city working with other cities in our county and other elected officials in our county. And through the Economic Development Corporation, through this city council, we're improving the relationship that exists with Wilson County and the cities that are around us, which historically had been very separate and uncooperative.
Amen.
And I think you'll also find that in this future land use plan, in the zoning maps, are defined cultural and historical zones
Right.
in where we're moving forward. So that is recognized by this council, and it is recognized by our planning and zoning committee, who are the drivers to this land use plan in defining these areas, so that when the Parks Foundation does, or Park Service comes in, they will see these. And this should, it's public now, but I think there's going to be some more public hearings on that.
Yes.
And I encourage you to take a look at those historical and cultural zones as well.
Amen. Thank you. Well, there are two statements you need to make. One is, if you don't know where you've been, you don't know where you're going. And secondly, we are not only the benefactors of the history that has gone before us, but we are also the beneficiaries of what has been done for us. So we are both benefactors and beneficiaries of the history that we hold. So that's the things we need to never forget. Thank you.
I just wanted to thank you for tonight and for being here, and more so for being on the city council. And I know from having been on various boards, it takes a tremendous amount of time, a tremendous amount of research, a lot of the hours behind the scenes, as you said earlier, Johnny. And so I just want to thank you. I know it's not always easy. We don't always agree sometimes, and you both know me well enough that I'll catch you on the street or I'll say it in public. But I do want to just mainly thank you for your time and service to this community, to the city, and to the county also, because I know there's a lot of involvement with all the different entities, so thank you.
Okay, that brings us up to 8:30. So just as a reminder, we do have some pen and paper there for the council members that couldn't be here this evening. Please see Mary Ann and take a sheet of paper, and we'll get that passed on to the appropriate council people. We certainly do want to thank Mr. Miller and Mr. Guerrero for showing up this evening, and please give them a round of applause. They will also be sticking around for another 30 minutes or so, so if any of you want to just speak to them one-on-one, I'm sure they'll be happy to answer any questions in private that you didn't want to bring out in public. Also, a thank you to, once again, to the American Legion, Paul and George, that allowed us to be here. I want to thank Mr. Underwood for coming and moderating tonight. And thanks to all the Patriots, too, for helping this evening.
Thank y'all for discussing Agenda 21 and the potential.
Amen.
And just as a reminder, if you can stick around to help clean up a little bit, please make sure you see Ralph. Ralph has the plans for how to put all this together. So please don't just grab a chair. Work with him. He can get things stacked up appropriately. And also a reminder, we do have the petition back there. Anyone who wants to sign the petition for the county, please go back there. Please see Mr. Abbott. He can help you out with that if you have any questions. And other than that, thank you, Wilson County Patriots, and everyone for showing up this evening.